Black Hypothesis. Hey everybody, this is B. Langston Jules.
And Paper Made.
And we are
Black Hypothesis. STEM for the culture.
All right, I'm back at it. Back in the kitchen, back in the lab. It's cooking today.
You know, it feels like the same old, but at the same time, same old feels different today.
It definitely is different. Do you know why it is different,
Why?
Paper Made? Because we got a special guest today. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're cooking up something real good. I'm really excited about this guest.
All right.
Actually, I think it's going to be a really good conversation. And I definitely want to hear about her story. And I want to hear about, what changes and, trailblazing that she's making in her career. So
I'm loving it. Right. I'm ready too.
Let's get into it then. Let's just cut out all the nonsense and let's introduce Alexis Blakes.
Alexis, what's going on?
It's going really chilly. It's starting to peak up a little bit here, a little bit of sunshine. So excited about that.
Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Maine right now.
That's obvious. Our space is obviously cold.
Yeah. Where are you? Sorry.
Yeah, Maine State. So all the way northeast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That would have been my second guess.
Yeah,
Maine.
that's as close to space. Yeah.
All right, cool. What are you doing in Maine?
I'm actually in Maine because I'm a student right now at Bowdoin College, and I'm studying computer science and digital and computational studies with a minor in education.
Are you planning on teaching what you learned to others at some point, or why the minor in education?
I would like to. I enjoy education. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the process of learning, but I think that there is a lot of room for improvement in education. And I think a lot of that improvement can start with educators. So I thought, it's no sense in, making a complaint and not presenting a solution. So I figured I would get that education to figure out how to, be someone who can really enrich people's learning experiences.
I'm loving it. So at the same time, we're delving into STEM, we're delving into this computer science, the computational sciences, and at the same time being able to have those skills to pass on the knowledge. That is what we are all about.
I'm with it. All right. So how about you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get to this point in your life where you want to do all these great things and the tech space in general?
Yeah. For me, I joined the military right out of high school. I joined the Army. I was a 25 November, which is a nodal network systems operator, which is a glorified way of saying secure communications. So that was my job, was to provide and maintain secure communications. And, that was a really eye-opening experience for me. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, to a single mom. So being introduced to so many career paths and having this training and having these experiences and not having to pay for them and being able to say, and I did that in service of something greater, and I did that in service of my country, that was the perfect opportunity for me to take. So I did. And, after 5 years in the military, I left, but I enjoyed my last duty station so much that I decided to stay in the area. So I stayed in Washington State. And I ended up working at Amazon Web Services as a data center technician for about 4.5, 5 years. And that was another rewarding experience, but it was a more eye-opening experience, incidentally, because it gave me this exposure to business and the workplace and what these issues are that my aunts and uncles were talking about when I was a child, about how work was just a mess. And so,
it used to go over your head then. But
fortunately, my job wasn't a mess, but I got to network with so many other people who worked in the same field, but at different companies and weren't having positive experiences. So that made me think, okay, there might be something going on in the tech space that needs to be changed. And that's when I started to get back into the mindset of wanting to go back to school. I had been in school on and off, and I wanted to just go back and really dive deep into computer science and start thinking of ways we can improve how we use technology in society, because, I'm very passionate about equity, and I'm very interested in addressing social problems. And I think that technology plays a big part in that.
All right, cool.
Yeah, actually here, Black Hypothesis, it mirrors exactly what you're saying as far as caring about equity and knowing that we don't have to, sometimes we feel we have to leave our culture behind when we're acclimating to spaces that we traditionally, or at least seemingly, are not represented in as much. And we feel those problems that may be obscure in some places and very blatant in others. And we feel that leaving our culture out of those spaces is really just going to propagate more problems for us in the long run. So how do we bring that equity with us? How do we bring our experiences with us into these spaces so that we can change them for the better, right? So that they're positively impacting not only us, but the people like us.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I just wanted to go back real quick. So you said it was eye-opening going from where you were at to Amazon. So more curious, because I'm not really in that space as much. So what would be the stark contrast in terms of going from a military setting to a civilian setting? Because I'm wondering if there was also that also probably played a part in how things were probably different for you.
Yeah, the easiest way to explain it is I ran in high school. The military is like running track, and being in, corporate America is like running cross country. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen on any given day. You don't know if you're going to have an experience that you can't come back from at that place. Nothing's really predictable. Like every day is kind of up in the air. And in the military, whole years of your life are already planned for you. So you go from like having a lot of structure and having that mental piece of not having to think about what's going to happen next, because you already know, to trying to anticipate what's going to happen so you can address it.
Interesting. So what would you say was one of the best parts of starting your tech career in the military versus what it could have been starting as, this cross-country metaphor that you're expressing in corporate America?
Yeah, there's a two-sided answer to that question for me, because I think about that in two veins. And, I think that a positive that I drew from the military was I was fortunate enough to have very strong, very supportive leaders. So much so throughout my career that, to me, that felt like having a support system that I couldn't have anticipated. And especially, the elephant in the room, being a Black woman and being in a place where you don't see very much representation of yourself in leadership, it does bring you some concern when you have to, follow this person's orders, unwaveringly with full commitment to the extent of your life. And so I think that in that respect, it gave me a different perspective about the world that I was walking into. And so I think coming of age as a young woman, I didn't find myself to be so animus about things and so cynical about the outlook of the future, because I already saw that there was hope, and I saw that there was positives and there were good people out here who did the right thing and who upheld principles. But in the same vein, I think the military taught me a lot about how to just stay alive. And I know that sounds like pretty self-explanatory, but I don't even mean it in the literal mortality sense. How do you stay socially alive? You talk less, you listen more, you pay attention, you get to know people. you make thoughtful suggestions, you understand their attitudes, you plan, things like that. It teaches you how to survive socially. How do you survive just balance wise, like balancing work and family, right? Well, they train you on how to do that, right? And so there are things that I feel like the military trains you for that didn't directly relate to your life, but had a direct impact on your life.
Yeah.
For example, there's a common military phrase, too easy. Anything, everything, all the things are too easy. That's just kind of an affirmation at this point when you do things that they're just too easy. And when you spend years with that mentality that everything in front of you is too easy and you can definitely do this, it changes you for the positive, because I don't think very many people get that much support or that type of support outside of a setting like that.
Yeah. I think that you're definitely right about that. In corporate America, there is this lack of awareness sometimes, and to get that training just built into your career is something that is definitely abnormal for a regular like civilian job. I do some of that research in what I do now for like threat management, and it's a lot of the conflicts that arise sometimes, whether it's due to cultural differences, whether it's due to differences of what I do versus what you do, and us not understanding what each other does. A lot of it grinds down to this lack of awareness and lack of that ability to think like, I can definitely do this, and I got a support that's going to back me up on this because I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and I like that too easy. I'm gonna steal it, honestly. I'm gonna steal that. I
Feel
like
free.
too easy, because usually like when your brain is already thinking, oh no, this is hard,
Yeah.
this and that, already in that negative space, your body's just gonna start moving in that area where it's like, all right, you're almost self-sabotaging yourself at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you hear that?
Just starting with the too easy thing already
Too
puts you in the
easy.
right spot. So, and honestly, I think that's a good setup for the next one. So, what are some challenges that you faced in your career? Like, what was the biggest one, would you say, and how did you work to overcome them?
I think that is a question that changes depending on what aspect of my career I was thinking about.
Okay.
When I think of the technical side of my career, I feel as though the challenges that I faced were more related to my inexperience to the environment, like not knowing how to, like, for example, you go from being on a team that's very explicit. Everything is explicit. Literally, there is no secrets in the military. Even if you are like having like personal issues and you are just, like, oh yeah, I forgot to take out my trash. That's probably common knowledge. Like everybody probably saw your trash cans. In corporate America, people don't necessarily feel as inclined to be as open or as communicative. They usually will be as communicative to the extent of their work. Some people are a little bit more open and try to engage, but a significant amount of people just kind of want to be left alone and, want to do their work, which is admirable and understandable. But that takes an adjustment, because what if I need to work with that person on something? I can't be worried about, well, I don't want to upset him or I don't want to disturb him. Like, we have a job to do here. There has to be some cohesion going on here. And so I think that was something that the soft skills of like how to deal with different people, how to interact, how to work collaboratively, how to make sacrifices, right? When you're working on projects and you're collaborating with people, not all of your ideas are going to go on paper. Not all of your contributions are going to be elevated. So those are things that you have to account for. But on the technical side of it, I would say that it was time, because there wasn't a challenge that I faced technically that I didn't overcome in some period of time. So I really do believe that if you actually prioritize your professional growth, then you can overcome technical challenges a lot quicker than you can overcome like the environmental challenges or the social challenges, or even, the leadership challenges you may face.
Yeah, I'm with that. Like putting some effort into the challenges that you face, the time and effort that it takes for technical challenges may more so be based on the effort and time that you put into it, rather than for the experiential challenges, which more is a cultural shift and is more difficult, you think?
I think so. And I think that discourages a lot of people from entering spaces that they're not familiar with, is this idea that your previous experiences have not situated you or positioned you well to do this thing. When in reality, there is no straight line of things that can prepare you to do anything at all.
Yeah.
And you come to find that out once you're already in the space, and you hear people saying, they've been working in their field for 15 years and they don't have a degree, or somebody has a degree, but they're changed jobs 4 times, but they're still making like 3 times more than their peers. So you hear these different trajectories for careers because people take the path, less traveled. They take their experiences and they position them the way that is beneficial for them, not the way that they think people will perceive them.
And that will be more beneficial possibly for some of you who are listening, is just to think about what can possibly benefit you and take that road. Take the road that's going to benefit you, because we all know that not everybody is going to be looking out for your best interest as much as you could possibly be looking out for your best interest.
Especially your job. So that's, I think we've seen that a lot. So you talked about like professional development and putting an emphasis on that. So I wanted to know if we could talk a little bit more about that. Like what do you specifically do? What do you think is important in doing that and accomplishing that? What should be a mindset towards professional development?
I'm comfortable with failure, would probably be the mindset you have to have. I think that when we go through early childhood and we become young adults, we kind of become young adults with this mindset, okay, cool, I know everything I need to know to survive now. And that's a really hard mindset to get out of when you're trying to learn something new. So when you're trying to develop a new skill or you're trying to enter a new field, you can't have that attitude of, well, I know what I'm doing. I know what's right. This doesn't make sense, and that's just me being really cynical. I don't think most people are that cynical, but I think people do get feelings of, why am I learning how to tape a box? I know how to tape a box. And then you have to put yourself in the mindset, well, you're not taping this box for yourself. You're doing a job, and you don't need to be overly invested in why you're doing something so much as how you're getting it done. And I think that is tough, especially for Black people, because I feel like in Black culture, we appreciate things being very explicit. We don't really like to have things implied or have to read between the lines. It's like, what do you want? Say that. That's kind of very much the culture. And so I think with professional development, sometimes you don't even know what you're professionally developing toward. Like, you're just putting another tool in the toolbox and kind of just walking through life to see if you're going to encounter a problem where you can use that tool. And I think that's tough for a lot of people to have that kind of blind faith, because we do like to have assurances. Our livelihood is on the line. We have to feed ourselves. We have to provide shelter for ourselves, our children, our families. So obviously people are concerned about these things, but I would just say that you have to at some point accept that you don't necessarily know what's going to happen next all the time.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's certainly okay. And that's, I think, to your point, why stressing the importance and the value, I should say, of STEM fields and STEM subjects, not just because you want to do it in your career, but just in general. They give you so many tools right? That you could put in that toolbox where if something does come up, you have something that you can pull out. You don't waste the tool, guys. Never waste your tools. You keep those things handy because you never know when when an opportunity is going to present itself, and you're going to be able to have the very tool that is going to fix that problem. And that's when that growth, that change, something is going to come of that.
Yeah, and I love that. That was the best part right there. If we cut just from "it's okay to fail," I think that would have been. If we just stopped right there, I think it would have been really good because that's like a concept that a lot of people. I don't want to say a lot of people, but I would say even personally for myself, and even like in certain environments, failure is harshly reprimanded. You know what I mean? And you can see obviously, absolutely, for your career, or like especially if you're like, oh, you know, if I want a bonus, I've seen people lose their bonuses off of like the terrible, like the worst stuff, like petty stuff. So it's kind of like in those type of situations, I've seen it, and it's like people are scared to make a decision or to go too far outside the box. And in those same environments, innovation is not there. Like it's like the same thing over and over.
Oh my gosh,
and we
it
can't do
kills
that.
creativity.
Yeah, and we can't do that, you know, in this day and age. You know, things are moving so fast. If you're trying to, if you're already doing the same thing you did last year, you're already like 2-3 years behind. You know what I mean? The actual like what's going on in the world. So
yeah,
I definitely did. I love that a lot. The failure thing.
Yeah, and I feel that it speaks to what we've seen a lot in this space as well, with that fear of failure, kind of just petrifying people from really taking the chance on learning something new, doing something new versus what they've been doing all along that is now, like you said, becoming overrun by automation, being taken over by processes that kind of make it so that they're not needed as much anymore. And it's just like, because of that unwillingness to move and change and grow, where will you be left? Where's your space?
Right.
You have to move along with your space.
Right. So a couple
There's a book about that too. It's only about 50 pages. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's about that little dichotomy of whether or not to stay or go, whether or not to
Ooh, Who Moved My Cheese, guys?
Yeah, I have to read that in college. That's a good one. Everyone should read that one.
Yeah, it's super short. It's kind of humorous. It's good.
Cool. All right. So a couple more questions for you. So speaking of like looking forward and the field and everything like that, what do you see is going to be the most impactful change, or what's the biggest thing coming down the pipeline in the future in your field or just in tech, do you think in general?
I think the area of tech that we should probably keep an eye on, or definitely keep an eye on, honestly, is big data. Because big data is going in a lot of interesting directions. Chat GPT is an example of what you can do with good data, with a lot of data. So, you know, I think people need to become a little bit more familiar about what it means to secure your personal data, what it means to manage your personal data, and what it means to relinquish your personal data. So I would definitely say big data is probably the area that I would watch the most, because so many other industries are contingent upon that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nice. And as far as your decision to enter the field that you're in, the studies that you have, what do you think was your foremost thought when deciding, you know what, I'm going to go back to school to specifically major in this? I want it to be computers. I want it to be computational sciences because of how did you decide to make this study one of those tools in your toolbox? And what was the shift from what you were doing to what you want to do next? Is there a huge difference?
Yeah, I would say there is a considerable difference, but I would say that the difference between what I've done in the past and what I'm doing is more so what people see. A lot of these things I've been doing for years. I've been writing articles for years, not necessarily getting published. I've been giving interviews for years, not necessarily being, streamed. I've had a lot of opportunities to engage with veterans organizations to support disabled veterans, to support veterans in education. I've also been fortunate enough to work in victim advocacy and sexual assault and sexual awareness. And, even most recently, I was doing a fellowship for equity on how to increase or improve the academic outcomes of first-generation students at community colleges. So I think the things that I've been doing and are doing are just, how can I help the most people in a way that is the least disruptive and the most beneficial for every party involved? And for me, being here at Bowdoin College, that sentiment is considered to be the common good. And that is ultimately what this liberal arts institution and their curriculum is striving toward, is how can we produce leaders that prioritize and advocate for and enact change upon the common good. And so I think that it's really important for people thinking about like the tech space and why I made that decision to go all in and come back to school and do digital and computational studies. What really started all of this was when I realized, and this was really tough for me, was I realized before the leaked op-ed that they were going to repeal Roe versus Wade, not because I'm a psychic and not because I'm a lawyer either, but literally because I had just recently been reading about how certain laws are the major pillar for other laws. Like they're the precedent that upholds other laws. And so if you kneecap it, you can subsequently topple, following legislation. And that was a concept that I wasn't expressly familiar with, because I don't work in that space. But when I realized that that was happening, my immediate thought was on my period tracker, because data. And I thought, well, doesn't the federal government and most government entities reserve some capacity to subpoena these types of records for criminal cases? Well, what happens if states start considering this to be criminal? And so, people have been having those conversations, scholars have been having those conversations for a long time, but that really concerned me as a Black woman, because I don't think that is more, I don't think there is any other pillar for women's rights that could have been knocked down that was as significant as Roe versus Wade. And so I think understanding hey, whether or not you choose to get involved and whether or not you choose to acknowledge it, information is being used to do some really questionable things right now. And we need more people to question whether or not these things are right, whether or not they're legal, and whether or not they're ethical.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of nonchalant or laissez-faire attitudes about how we handle our data and everything, and we're just giving it away just so freely, and it's we're really starting to see a lot of those examples that you're talking about, how that can really come back and bite us. And I hope that we can eventually start to pay a little bit more attention and not just think about, oh, what's in front of us, why is nothing is free. That's what I always think.
It's not, it's really not. But yeah, that's the attitude to have, is that nothing is free, and it's not a cause for people to panic. I don't think people should be scared. I think people should regard data. You wouldn't walk up to, you have to think about it like this in the simplest sense, right? So if I go to a website, I visit a website, I grab some things, put it in my shopping cart, I don't buy it. Well, there are cookies that kind of leave little breadcrumbs about the activity that I did on that website and what I had going on. And you think about this, that will be the equivalent to you throwing out your mail and then somebody going through your trash. Would you willingly accept that? Would you be comfortable with that? Would you feel like that wasn't an invasion of your privacy? So it's, not that extreme, but that's the sentiment of how that feels. And what that is most fundamentally is you have commercial interests in knowing your business, but we know we don't want everyone to know all of our business. And we know that everybody shouldn't know all of our business. So I think that you know, the big thing for the Black community, especially when it comes to protecting their data and protecting their information, is to just be aware of how closely linked you are to the other people in your community. Like, do understand that the Black community is not monolithic, but it is very well connected to say it doesn't have, express resources as an entity. You can see that even when you look at Black Twitter, like, how is it that a rumor can fly, this fast around the world, but only hit this demographic of people? So there are a lot of indications as to who you're associated with and your activity with or towards that person. And that's especially important for Black people because we know the repercussions that can happen from knowing the wrong person or being in the wrong place at the wrong time or fitting the description. So just being aware of who's in your network and what technologies they're using. If someone sends you a weird link, oh, you can sign up and do a survey and get $500. You have to ask yourself, why would anybody do this? Why would this be a real thing? Is this legitimate? Should I research this? So little things like that are ways that I think African Americans specifically can safeguard their information and privacy, is just knowing what you're downloading and knowing, when people send you links, because like I said, the Black community is well connected. We're very communicative. We communicate a lot. Just know what you're involved with before you start clicking links. And that's probably the best piece of advice I could give.
No, definitely. Thank you for that. And sage words, I think we'll all take that more into consideration. So Alexis, thank you for joining us today. I think you have so much even more to share. I just wish we could talk more. If anyone wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain about a couple more things, where could we find you?
Yeah, I'm actually on LinkedIn. So just shoot me a message on LinkedIn and an invite, and I will respond to you as soon as I can.
Okay. All right, cool. LinkedIn. That's where she at.
I love LinkedIn.
Not space. And she's paying too. All right, cool. So thank you for joining us. This was dope.
This was amazing.
Thank you so much for having
me. Everything that we received from you, I loved it so much. You are amazing. And I wish you all the best in your studies. I wish you all the best in your career endeavors. And I really hope this is not the last Black Hypothesis use of you, Alexis.
No, absolutely not. Thank you so much for having me on, and you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, yourself as well. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you liked the episode. If you did like it, go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also available on all other social media platforms as well, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you'd like to reach out to us regarding any critiques, a topic that you'd like us to cover, or you'd just like to be a guest on the show, you can email us at blackhypothesis@gmail.com. Thank you for your support.